Hello, and welcome to Lead, Learn, Connect, where we explore the worlds of training, coaching, and powerful leadership. I'm your host, Alan Krieger, and on this show we talk about not just the how of helping others grow, but the behind-the-scenes work of overcoming challenges and staying connected to what's really important. My guest today is Lew Rogers, who has more than 15 years' experience in learning and development. He leads a team of trainers and coordinators in leadership development programming for a large state agency in South Carolina. Whether you're a new trainer, a seasoned facilitator, or just curious about what it takes to thrive in this world, this episode is for you. Welcome, Lew.
Glad to be here, Alan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I really appreciate it. We had some good conversation before we started here, and you talked about building resilience in leadership as one of your key focus areas of focus. So what does resilience mean to you in the context of leadership, especially in the public sector?
So it's really important to me to help leaders thrive in their roles. And if leaders thrive in their roles, then their direct reports can thrive, which means families can thrive. And as I got into my role in leadership development in public agencies, I recognized that the higher up the hierarchy you go, if you want to call it that, the more lonely people were in leadership roles. Everybody talks about what it takes to be a leader, but nobody tells you how lonely it can be. And if you're an innovator, if you want to make change, how difficult that can be and what kind of pushback you can get. And so in terms of being resilient as a public leader, it's about being very self-aware, being fully wide awake in terms of what the role entails, having a focus on a clear sense of purpose, that you know your calling and what you want to do, building strong relationships and collaboration so that you're not lonely, recognizing you're not the only one going through this. There are others. Even inside of an agency with a team, there can be silos, and so helping leaders break down those silos and find connection with each other so that they gain support from a peer support standpoint. A supportive work environment, psychological safety for them. A lot of times leaders feel like it's not safe for them to talk to anybody, and we want to make sure they understand that that's not true. And part of resilience is having that safe place to be able to talk about their struggles.
So how do you create a sense of safety? Because I totally connect with what you're saying, that as a leader, I'm supposed to be in charge. I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. I don't want to look weak. I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. And silos, again, very common. So what do you do as a training area to break down silos, to create a sense of it's okay to say I don't know and ask for help? What do you do to get there?
That's a great question. The first thing we do is go ahead and expose it and say, even if you don't want to admit you don't know what you're doing, other people already know. And it's okay, right? Imposter syndrome is real across the board. And we create a training environment where people, we tell people, we set the tone, the rules of the sandbox, so to speak. Here's what our guidelines are for this conversation. Here's how we're going to interact with each other. And it's our responsibility as facilitators to hold people to that and to create that space for them. And so we model what psychological safety looks like in a team. And we work hard to facilitate that and then encourage and teach them what psychological safety actually is versus what it isn't, and how to cultivate that in their own groups. I intentionally designed training groups where in breakouts there are people from all across the organization interacting with each other, not just one group of people. Even if I do a training with leaders that are in one area, say all the county directors, then I will mix them up from different regions and different counties, big and small. If there's anything that we can do to help break those silos and build networks and support so that there's greater understanding of how the organization works across the board and how we can support each other, we will do that and facilitate that in our training environments.
Yeah, that's great. So you're not just teaching people leadership 101, 102, and 103, but
No, sir.
you're creating that network, you're creating that integration through the experience of being in the training with you.
That's correct.
Yeah,
That's correct.
that's a great strategy. Another thing you talked about is adaptive leadership when we were talking before. And how do you help leaders? Change is kind of the only constant we have now. So how do you help them learn to manage through all the change that's going on?
That's a great question. The truth is, everybody, that line, the only constant is change, is 2,500 years old. It comes from a Greek philosopher way back when. And my thought is after 2,500 years, you would think we have it, but we don't. And what we find in public organizations, especially service organizations, it's not that change is constant, it's the rate of change that increases that really burns people out. And so we do a couple of things. Number one, we don't pretend that change is not the norm. We help people accept the mindset and shift their mindset to accept that change is the norm. This is just simply how we operate. This is what public service organizations do. You have legislatures that send in new statutes or change policies. There's a practice policy change. There's a procedure change. All of those things are going to happen constantly in an effort to better serve our people. And helping people understand that it's not going to quit. So don't look for it to quit. That really does help set a mindset of, okay, I just need to learn how to adjust through this. And then we give them the tools to do it. We teach change management through Cotter's 8-step model. We teach managing transitions. We don't just teach it, we coach it. So then once the skills have been taught and the tools have been given, then we support our leaders in any way we can, any way they ask for, that we can do to help them implement the tools that they've learned.
Talk a little bit more about that. What does the coaching look like? What are some various ways it may come through?
That's a good question too. So our coaching program, I was actually brought here specifically to implement a coaching model, and we have spent 5 years implementing a coaching model. I was very fortunate that the leadership was ready for that, understood that good implementation takes a long time. If you're going to be sustained, have a sustained product. And so we have a couple of areas of how we do that. One, we have what we call leadership labs inside the county. So we will train people in the classroom setting, and then we go into the counties with them in their day-to-day work to help them apply the learning that they had in the classroom, because learning application is the key. And it needs to happen almost immediately, otherwise they lose it. And we know that training by itself is not effective. It doesn't change behavior. What changes behavior is coaching. So we do skills coaching around new skills or around new practices that we're teaching people and our leaders, frontline leadership, upper leadership. We will go and coach them in the moment. The other thing we do is executive level coaching. There are a few of us who have been trained and either are or in the middle of International Coaching Federation certification to do leadership coaching with our executive level folks. And we've started implementing that just over the last year, and that's been very successful and very well received.
Talk a little bit about, you said you follow the leaders into the counties, coach them on the job. What is that? Are you walking around watching them? Do you have scheduled meetings with them, or they call you when they need help? How does that play out?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
No, we don't follow them around. That we don't do. What we will do is we'll come into a county after we've had a discussion with county leadership and talk about what the specific needs are. And we'll go into a county and we might do a refresher on a specific skill or a specific practice. with the leadership in a training setting, and then after that, meet with them one-on-one and talk to them about what their specific struggles are, kind of develop an individual development plan, and then whatever their role is, we will sit with them and help them. If it's supervision and they're struggling with communication with a specific person, then we may actually sit in the supervision, but we let the person know, I'm not here for you, I'm here for them, I'm watching them. It takes a minute for people to get used to that. But once they realize that we're not there to beat them up, it's a strength-based process, and it's all about feedback and what's observed, they're grateful for the help. And so we've just really gotten started with that, but in certain other areas, that's been going on for a little while, and they've seen great results with it, great results. So we're trying to expand it from the pilot model and across the state.
But one thing I've heard talking with others in that kind of a internal coaching environment is that sometimes senior leadership will ask you for feedback about the person you're coaching and use that in a performance evaluation. What's the boundaries that you have, and how does that happen, and what's your role in that performance evaluation process?
So our coaching is only learning and development, and for learning and development purposes only. And we have a written program, a written coaching agreement that states that. So as we were implementing this, I had a meeting with the head of our human resources department and our general counsel and said, this is for that. We know that statistically speaking, and through research, that coaching is most successful when people voluntarily engage in the process. And they don't have to worry about the sort of Damocles hanging over their head that this is not an HR function. This is specifically learning and development. And so we have a code of ethics in the state of South Carolina that we have to follow. We also have an HR manual. And so we tell people that, the conversation is confidential, and I won't even keep records except a final summary in your learning and development folder about what what you worked on in general, unless you violate the code of ethics or part of the HR policy, and that I'm obligated by law to report that. People know this up front. And so having that agreement up front, having clear communication with the people who you need to have that conversation with, was key towards us staying out of any HR related involvement. And once someone is HR related involved, we pull out.
Okay. So
and there's another team that would do that, because anybody can be subpoenaed for any reason in an action. And so for a deposition or anything else. And we try to keep our coaches out of that. But the purpose is professional development. We don't use our coaching for discipline related issues. There is a process for that, but that's not what this is.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's really critical to be able to give the coachee the comfort that they can be honest. They can say that they really don't know what they're doing, and that it's not going to get back to somebody who they've been fooling and thinks they know what they're doing. So yeah, that's great. And you talked about clear communication, and so I want to talk a little bit about the team communication styles that we had talked about. You scored high in E and M, the Engage and the Mediate, which are the people side. Key for being a good coach is to be able to have that connection. And you scored very low in T, or the Tell, which is a very direct, short, and abrupt kind of style, quick and to the point. And then you shared that you were a T when you began and worked hard to lower that score, and you apparently were very successful. And I think it's an important point that the communication styles are changeable. They're we're not born and stuck with them. But talk a little bit about how you made that transition from Tell to Engage and Mediate.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that leaders find so helpful, is that you can change your leadership style. Your values drive your leadership style, and we focus on leadership behaviors. It's so hard to talk about leadership competencies, or you need to learn this skill or that skill sometimes, but when you put it in terms of a behavior and how frequent that behavior needs to be for you to be successful, well, that's actionable. That's something I can do. I used to get really frustrated when people would tell me when I was early on, and I don't mind telling you this, but I'm ADHD, and I didn't realize how my brain worked for a very long time. I didn't realize the symptoms of ADHD, and so irritability, kind of a lack of recognizing social cues in the moment. If my mind was going really fast, I would be very abrupt, and I would just tell people what to do, or I would just say things, and I wouldn't mean anything by it. But next thing I know, somebody's ready to quit because of something I said, and I'm like, what? And I think the first moment I really recognized that I needed to change the way I did things was I was the residential director at a very large group home in Charleston, South Carolina. And my first day, my boss walked me into a room full of people, 50, 60 people, said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lew Rogers. He's your new boss." And he slapped me on the back and said, "Good luck." And he walked out of the room. And everybody's looking at me like, "You're who?" And in trying to make some changes and trying to do some things there, I would just rely on my authority. Well, I didn't get very far because people would undermine you. They would not want to do it, or they didn't feel like they had the time to do it in an environment like that, or they didn't share your vision. And you cannot tell people to do your vision. They have to buy into your vision, and it has to be a shared vision. So you have to incorporate part of their vision. And it was a rough few years for me, and it was a growing few years for me. But that's when I realized that authority alone does not a good leader make. It's all about empathy. It's all about understanding. It's all about influence. Even if you have the authority, you need influence to get people on board with change initiatives. And so I learned through some very intense, very sleepless, very high anxiety inducing years that tell is just not a good way to go all by itself, right? There are days where you have to. There are instances where in a crisis you tell,
Yep.
right? But everybody understands that that's what's happening, through clear communication. And so I had to learn to change. And as I started to grow and understand the differences, and I understood trauma response in families, and then in staff, secondary traumatic stress, and how to coach through that, and then how to coach leadership, that's where my passion grew to change my communication style to be effective in that.
Okay, yeah, and it sounds like you've made a great transition.
Sorry,
And
that was a lot of words and a lot of rambling, Alan. I apologize for
well,
that.
no, there's a lot of nuances to it. It's not just I'm not going to be this, I'm going to be that. And you
Right.
talked about empathy, and again, the tell style um, isn't empathetic. They are focused on getting the work done, and where everything else is good, it's a good style. It can work. You can get things done. But where you're a new trainer, a new leader walking in, it's not the style to walk in and say, okay, I'm in charge here, folks. Let's get back to work. And I was just talking to somebody who's got a new boss like that, and it's like, well, we needed someone decisive. It's great that she's decisive, but boy, there's no connection, there's no personality, there's no empathy, and it's
Especially in
hard.
human.
It's hard
Yeah.
to make that change. It's so I mean, congratulations on growing through that. Did you have a coach or a mentor, or is that something you work
I've
mostly on your own?
No, not on my own. I've had a lot of coaches and mentors, people who and friends, right? A couple of very close friends who would tell me the truth,
Hmm.
and still be my friend, and then coaches and mentors as well. And I've had a lot of coaching. Still involved in leadership coaching because I find it very beneficial. I very much believe in a growth mindset, and I don't believe you can encourage a growth mindset in an organization if you don't model it yourself. And so my team, as a leadership team, I expect all of us to be continuously engaged in learning. So when we're not training and we're not working on projects actively, then I expect us to be engaged in some sort of learning.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, continuous learning is what us in the L&D space talk about. And it's good that we
Yep.
could walk the talk and show it. Yeah, that's great. So a number of things you've talked about are fairly innovative. And I've worked in the public sector, different state, and they tend to be more risk averse. Innovation is usually not front and center. They sometimes talk innovation, but then they draw these boundaries. So you've done a number of innovative things. What's been your experience, and what makes innovation work in a public sector environment?
So I think, let's be fair to both sides. I think one of the reasons that public service agencies are risk averse, for lack of a better term, is that they have a legislated mission. They exist for a specific purpose. They have to protect the personal information and the medical information of the clients that we serve. We have to make sure that we're not doing something in the name of innovation that would then harm somebody or cause a massive breach to public security. And I don't. What I mean by that is private information, social security numbers, financial records, things like that. Depending on the public service organization, you could have a lot of child support information, which means bank accounts. You could have social security numbers, you could have Medicaid numbers, you could have lots of different things that people could exploit if you're not careful with your platforms. So being risk averse in those ways is good, but then trying to find ways to maximize your efficiency without compromising the integrity of your system is a real challenge. But also redefining what innovation looks like in a public service organization. It could be streamlining policy. It could be streamlining a practice or a process. Actually utilizing continuous quality improvement processes across every platform that you have that intersects to see if what you're doing really is what you meant for it to do, or is it working or is it not working? And then if it's not working, have the courage to change it. Bringing child welfare practice or juvenile justice practice or any other kind of practice with people into current practice, best practice, not just doing what we always did because that's how we always did it. Coaching in an organization, having a coaching program in an organization. We're not the first to do it, but we're the first state agency in South Carolina to do it. And so it is an innovation. And there's a lot of different ways to be innovative without running the risk that people are really concerned about. So I think one of the ways to be innovative is to understand the risk that people are really worried about and showing that you care about that risk and mitigating that risk as you implement your innovation.
Yep. No, it's a great description. And yeah, and to be fair, not only are state agencies created by legislature for a purpose, but and to serve their clients, but they also serve the public trust. I mean,
Correct.
that's different than a corporation serves its owners and tries
Shareholders.
to make a
Yeah.
profit, right? That's what this is about. State agency, we have to serve the entire public and be balanced and somewhat cautious. So I like your incremental innovation, acknowledging the risks and being clear that we've taken them into account. We're going forward in a prudent way, but we're going to try something new and different. We're going to improve our practice, improve our processes. Well, Lew, we're just about out of time. Is there anything else you want to add about maybe some of the keys to being effective in the learning and development space? Anything we haven't talked about?
No, just, I think one of the biggest things I've learned is to be very open to not assuming what people need from us and to listening to them about what they need from us.
Okay.
And I think that's the biggest thing that our leaders have appreciated, is that we don't walk in the door and say, okay, here's your problem, here's what you need, and here's how we're going to fix it. We don't fix anything. We do very thoughtful needs analysis where we take into account what they see. We listen to them. We treat them as the experts in their field, and we give them that respect. And we work really hard to partner with them to come up with solutions that will actually meet their needs versus training for training's sake, or us being the expert and them being the people who need help.
Okay. So,
You don't treat your clients that way, and you don't treat your leaders that way. It's always bugged me in human services that we demand our frontline folks be empathetic with the people they serve, but we are not empathetic with our people, our coworkers, our team members, the people we lead. You know, I'm sorry your husband lost their job and now you're trying to figure out how to make a house payment, but you still got work to do. You can't do that.
yeah.
So we have to model that, and we have to show that, and then we coach that all the way through. So that's the only thing I think I would add.
Yeah, spoken like a true engage and mediate person. Good listeners, empathetic, uh, treat the whole person when we're leading a team. We're not just leading workers; we're leading people. And then when there are problems, we're not the experts to come in and we got a leaky faucet. We know what to do. This is a more complex, nuanced situation. So we're going to take the time to listen, to hear, to explore, and to ideally follow the lead of the people in need, rather than come in and impose something. Well, great. It's been great talking with you, Lew, but that's it for today's episode of Lead, Learn, and Connect. A huge thank you to Lew Rogers for sharing his experience and knowledge. If you found this helpful, please be sure to subscribe, share it with a colleague, and leave a review. You can find out more about Lew and how to get in touch in the show notes. And if you're ready to strengthen how you teach or coach communication, click the link to our website to learn more about the T.E.A.M model of communication, and follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep leading with intention, keep learning, and keep connecting. Thanks for listening.